Minister, I'd like to congratulate you on your appointment. Today is undoubtedly a really proud day for you and for your family as well. Some have commented on your age and queried if that should exclude you from the role. While I'm glad to not be the only one who's patronised because of their age, it goes without saying that I don't think your age is an issue. I think that we need more young people in politics. We also need more women and more people from underrepresented communities sitting at the cabinet table. But we'll have to wait for the next government for that to hopefully happen. So, Minister, while I wish you well personally in your new position, I wonder, will anyone outside of here really notice the difference? Will anything change other than a face at the cabinet table? Will people struggling with the cost of living finally get the support they need? Will the hundreds of thousands who were locked out of home ownership finally get a secure roof over their heads? Will disabled people finally have access to the essential services that they desperately need? Will parents struggling with the cost of childcare finally get relief? Will children living in poverty finally be a priority? Will carers finally get access to respite and sufficient financial support? Will our schools finally be properly resourced to provide quality education to all of our children, including those with additional needs? Will our small and medium businesses finally get the help they need to keep the doors open? Will our climate targets finally be met, or will it continue costing us in fines for not reaching them? Minister, I could continue to list the areas that desperately need investment all day. There are so many people who are struggling and so many areas that we need to target with support. The good news is you have a lot of money at your disposal. The government had a surplus of 8 billion last year and expects a similar surplus this year. Ireland is undoubtedly a rich country, and you have a huge opportunity as Finance Minister to make a real and substantial difference in people's lives. The question is, will you take that opportunity or not? Minister, I genuinely believe that a better Ireland is not just possible, but imminently achievable. Regrettably, an increasing number of people out there have lost hope of any possibility of that. They feel like the country is no longer working for them, and the government either doesn't understand or doesn't care about them. I think this disillusioned feeling comes from a really profound sense of disconnect. A disconnect between where we are as a country and where we could or should be. A disconnect between a GDP per capita that makes us one of the richest countries in the world and 4,000 children growing up in emergency accommodation. A disconnect between full employment and 500,000 adults living in their childhood bedroom. The disconnect between an €8 billion surplus and over 600,000 people living in poverty. Is it any wonder that people feel disillusioned? Too many people are being left behind, and they can't see a way out that isn't via the departure lounges in Cork, Shannon or Dublin Airport. And this government is running out of time to make a difference. The reality is that your tenure as Minister is likely to last mere months. So I'm wondering about how you intend to use that time. Is your sole concern going to be developing a short-term giveaway budget in advance of the general election in the hopes of buying people's votes by giving them back a few euro of their own money? Or are you going to make structural changes and the critical investment that we need to lift people out of poverty, to put a roof over people's heads, support struggling families and target support to the most vulnerable in our society? Show me your budget and I'll show you your priorities is a truism for good reason. The way government spends its money tells us a lot about its focus. And for example, last year's allocation to disability services wasn't just miserly, it was pathetic. A one-off payment, people are disabled for 365 days of the year. New investment of just 65 million, a fraction of what the government's own capacity review said was needed to meet the unmet needs of disabled people. Tax breaks that favoured higher income workers over those who have made choices between heating their homes and feeding their children. a failure to even spend the capital housing budget despite the enormous and growing housing disaster that we're dealing with. Minister, I would ask you, do you want to be remembered just as the youngest Minister for Finance in 100 years, or as the Minister who made the biggest difference in the shortest period of time possible to people's lives? That's the choice that faces you, and I hope you choose the latter.
Thank you, Deputy.